I should have known picking up this book that I wasn't gonna love this. Normalize it, it's fantasy, you can literally do anything. I'm looking at you, Mercedes Lackey. It is dense and it is complex and it's a slow read. I just want to read more books about badass terrible people being badass and terrible. I haven't had a 5-star read at this point since the beginning of October and I'm like, is it me? Is it the books? Like, am I broken? Hello everybody, welcome to my first reading vlog of December. Now, if you watched my last installment of the Unhaul project, you will know that I mentioned wanting to introduce one more vlog series to my channel, and today is finally the day. I can't say right now at this moment whether it's going to be a series because we're going to see how this installment goes and then we'll go from there. But you guys may know that I have recently, over the last 3 months, picked up a new book subscription. Now, I want to state here that this vlog is not sponsored or affiliated with this book box in any way. I pay for this monthly subscription, so it's not a rep package or anything. And the book box in question that we are talking about is the Goldsborough Science Fiction and Fantasy Fellowship. So a little bit of information about what this is. It is a monthly book only subscription. I think it's £21 a month plus shipping, so it costs me like £24-25 a month, and you will get a brand new fantasy or sci-fi release. They do a little bit of young adult, I think. I've only had it for 3 months and I haven't like super researched the past selections, but it's a sci-fi or fantasy hardback that sometimes has an exclusive cover, sometimes has sprayed edges, but they are all signed by the author and they are all numbered first editions. The subscription slots at the minute are maxed out at 2,000. I think there's like a 6 to 8 month wait list for this. I think I signed up way back in June and I got my invitation in the middle of September, but that is only because they opened up 500 new subscriptions. So being on the standard waiting list, like waiting for people to drop off, I have no idea how long that takes. So the reason that I wanted this subscription is because I noticed that a lot of the books that they pick are not ones that I would pick up for myself. And I feel like my main reading habits when it comes to adult fantasy is that I'm playing catch up on series that are the best fantasy series that were published, like started being published in like the year 2000 or the 90s. And I wanted to introduce into my collection some newer fantasy releases that I maybe hadn't heard of that I would not pick up on my own, because booktube as a whole, like there's a big adult fantasy booktube community, but the more popular like mainstream side of booktube doesn't focus on like really hard adult fantasy, so you only really commonly hear the most popular series thrown around. As somebody who gets all of my recommendations from booktube, if I'm not seeing somebody mention it, then I'm probably not going to look into it and pick it up. So that's the reason why I got this subscription. But because I'm paying for it, I want to make sure that I'm actually reading those books, because otherwise I'm just going to end up with like a whole ton of hardback fantasy and sci-fi first books in series that I'm just not getting to. So I want to do a series where every 3 months I read the last 3 Goldsborough SFF picks. So in this video, hopefully, fingers crossed, if all goes well, I'm going to be reading the September, October and November GSFF books. So I'll just run through the 3 books that I'm going to be reading quickly, but not give you too much information about them, because obviously I'm going to be reading them in this vlog. But the September pick was Among Thieves by N.J. Kuhn. This one is an adult fantasy that follows some sort of like mercenary or assassin. The October pick is The Actual Start by Monica Byrne. This one is a adult sci-fi standalone that has a lot to do with, I think, reincarnation and time. And the November pick, which is the one that I'm least hyped about reading, is All of Us Villains by Amanda Foodie and Lynn Herman. And this sounds very much like an Unkindness and Magicians by Kat Howard, where it has some kind of like magical magician competition in it. So these are the 3 books, and the one that I'm going to be kicking off with is the only one on my Bookoply TBR, which is Among Thieves by N.J. Kuhn. So all I know about this is that we're following a girl called Raya, and she's been working as like a mercenary, an assassin, something like that, and she just has one more job that stands between her and freedom, but she can't pull it off alone, so she asks this band of like smugglers and thieves to help her pull off this task. I do have a bookmark in it, but I'm only 2 pages into it. I read a couple of pages when I was eating my Nutella toast this morning, so I haven't really started it, but I'm excited to get stuck into it. This one has exclusive sprayed edges, I believe. Not a fan of the color palette on this, but only really because of the lime green, and is number 716 out of 2000. So that is my reading plans, but as it is also the 1st of December today, we're also going to have some festive stuff going on, starting off with the Christmas decorating, which I'm going to be starting after work today. I'm one of those people, like, I do really love Christmas, but I don't like looking forward to things, so I can only start Christmas decorating on the 1st of December. I did pick up this little real Christmas tree here yesterday, which is one of those where I think you're just supposed to put the pot outside after Christmas and it should be able to thrive out there by itself and it'll like grow bigger every year. Underestimated how big that was going to be because I wanted it on this table, but as you can see it's a little bit too tall to really fit into my videos, so it has been living next to the fireplace. And I mean, it would have been a lot better if I'd have done this at the weekend so I wouldn't have to do it midweek after work, but I don't know, I'm like a real stickler for tradition and I just can't put decorations up before the 1st of December. So we have all of that to look forward to tonight. I'm really excited because I have done a whole ton of Christmas shopping already, so I'm excited to actually finally get into the festive spirit.
Wishing well to our world, peace on earth to everyone, a time to be joyful when all is calm and all is bright. But why does it change with the seasons, and why can't we just hold on to silent nights, holy nights, and angels singing lullabies, and heaven and nature singing goodwill to all, to all. There are times I can remember with family and friends, the light of Christmas radiates and lights up my memories, the magic of love. We made time, but why does it change with the seasons, and why can't we just hold on to silent nights, holy nights, and angels singing lullabies, and
I am sat in the debris, the chaos, the aftermath of my book haul, which I've just filmed, but I've managed to dig out Among Thieves, which of course is my current read, and I'm now 226 pages into it, so I think I'm like exactly like 66% of the way through. I'm 2/3 through this book, and I gotta say I'm not loving it. Like, I should have known picking up this book that I wasn't gonna love this, just because it is a standalone at 339 pages, so it's not going to deliver what I really love from a fantasy. But I've been wrong before, because I really like the Unkindness and Magicians by Cat Howard, which is like a 300-page standalone fantasy. It's like a fun heist story. It is adult, but it's not really dense in any way. There is some like world building stuff that I'll talk about in a second, but like in terms of the writing style, it's not very dense. It has a lot of humorous moments. The people in this heist all like joke with each other. There's some swearing in here, but generally, like, if you're somebody who's looking to go from YA to adult, this would probably be a great book for you to pick up. The reason I'm not enjoying this is that it is one of those fantasies where it just throws you into the world and doesn't really explain what's going on. So this could 100% benefit from a map. Like, as a minimum, we need a map in this book. We could also do with, especially because it's just like it throws you in and then the story just keeps going and doesn't really explain things. It could also do with like a guide to the thieving guilds, maybe the nobility and the royalty of the different areas, because I feel like every character in here, like, they all have their own secret backstories. So they've all ended up in this crime gang called the Saints, and one of them was on the run from someone. The main character is on the run from the guild master, but she has connections to something at some point, which makes that whole reason why she's run away a little bit deeper. She also has some abilities that are a little bit suspicious. One of them is looking for the sister who went missing a long time ago, and they're all from different places, and some of them have connections to like royalty at different places. But because all of these names are just coming at you like every few pages, like you're never really quite sure like who belongs to which country and like who's the royalty of what country. The place, I don't think it's the city, I think it's the place where the crime gangs operate, like the barrel in Six of Crows, is called the Lottery, and I feel like it didn't make it clear that the lottery was a place at the beginning of this, so it kept saying about people being in the lottery, and I thought it was a lottery, you know, like you draw and somebody wins something. So it took me ages to figure out that that was a place and not an actual lottery. So yeah, it's just real fast-paced and it's not really holding my attention. But if you like just like a fun heist story where it's just the heist, you might enjoy this. Like imagine Six of Crows but fast paced, that kind of thing. What else have I read that's a heist? I had another book. What's another heist story? I have read another heist and not even that long ago, and it's completely escaped my brain. But I am planning on finishing this tonight. I mean, I still have so much work to do. It's 4 p.m. on Friday. It's 4:20 now, and I need to stop working and make dinner soon. But today so far I've filmed a book haul, proofed a video, prepared a candle restock, edited the haul. I'm doing this vlog update, then I have to sort out thumbnails for both that haul and last week's vlog. Oh, what else? Proof the haul, make dinner, do the restock, work out, and then I have the Buffy watch along with my patrons. And I do think I'm actually going to work tomorrow as well, because I only have one more restock after tonight for candles. I think that I might work tomorrow and just ship orders all day tomorrow. I might just actually work every day until I start working for Christmas, because my last day I'm going to close on the 17th, or like maybe before that, and have everything done on the 17th. So I might just work through both weekends, and then I should in theory have not a lot on before the 17th, like in that week. Anyway, you guys don't need to hear this. I'm gonna try and finish this book today, but as you can tell, I have a lot going on, so I don't know if I'm gonna make it. It took me much longer than anticipated, but I finished Among Thieves by MJ Kuhn, and this, I feel like I've seen that it's a standalone, and I don't know where, like on Goodreads it doesn't say that it's a book one in any series. It says in a lot of places that it's a novel, which like all books are novels, but normally people, like publishers, whatever, whoever writes descriptions, uses the word novel when it's a standalone. So I fully expected this to be a standalone, but having read it, I feel like it's a series, and it's just like the sequel hasn't been confirmed. There's no contract for the sequel on this, because if this is a standalone, then the ending is just real bad. Real bad. There's so many plot threads that are just kind of left open. So many characters with plot lines that are unresolved. And if it is a series, then yeah, that kind of makes sense, and there is a direction for a sequel if a sequel does come. But then saying that, I didn't think too much of it anyway, because I gave it 3 stars. To be fair, enjoyment wise right now, if I was rating this on enjoyment alone, I would give it 2 stars. But I don't think it's all that bad. Like, I think that the writing is decent, it's good. I liked a lot of the characters, and if you like fast-paced stories that really get to the point and like skip to the action and you constantly have the plot moving, then I think you'll enjoy this book. I just don't like that. There's like very few instances where I do like books like that, but generally speaking, not my kind of thing. So 3 stars overall. There's a lot in here. Like I said, it left loads of things unresolved, maybe because there's a sequel, but also there's just a lot going on in here. There's 5 or 6 characters, with all of them having their own separate independent plot lines or backstories that need a resolution that they don't get. Also kind of tries to do a found family, but then I don't feel like we have enough space within the book. Like, the book isn't long enough for a found family to really hit. And there's also quite a bit of betrayal in here, because to be fair, these are all criminals and they do act like criminals. The band of saints are all working for their own motives. They're all gonna like double cross each other, but because we're skipping through so many perspectives, I don't feel like the betrayals were executed amazingly. This is real. I don't think it's terrible. I truly don't. I just really don't think it's my kind of thing. And there's queer rep in here as well, which was cool. I liked it. I liked how it was executed as well, where it wasn't a big deal that the characters were queer. They just were, which is what I like to see in my fantasy stories. I'm tired. It's 2021. I'm tired of homophobic worlds and characters having to hide that they're queer and come out. Like, normalize it. It's fantasy. You can literally do anything. I'm looking at you, Mercedes Lackey. So because I'm planning on making this into a vlog series, I'm going to be making a graphic with like star ratings and putting the covers of the books in, and then I guess like in a year's time, when I've had a year's worth of GSFF, we'll have a look at it and see. I feel like, I don't know, we'll see whether the subscription is actually worth my money, like whether I'm enjoying the majority of the books that I'm picking up. And the reason why I don't want to commit to that now is because I feel like if I'm not enjoying most of the books that are coming through this subscription, then it's not worth having the subscription. But when I came up with the idea of doing it like that, I was like fully convinced that I was gonna love the majority of books that were coming through this subscription, and we've got off to a bad start, haven't we? Especially because of the 3 that I'm reading this week, or throughout this vlog. This was the one that I was most excited for. So not off to a great start, but I have hope as well for the next book I'm going to be picking up, which is The Actual Star by Monica Byrne. So I know very little about this one as well, but it is a adult sci-fi. It's real chunky. It has a hella thick glossary at the back. The glossary starts here. So the book is 576 pages, and all of that is glossary, and then I'm assuming like acknowledgements as well. But this deals with 3 reincarnated souls, assumedly some time travel, or we're skipping through the times that the reincarnated souls have lived. We have an ancient Mayan empire in here, and also a futuristic civilization on the brink of war. And I think all of the timelines converge on a Belizean cave. It's very intimidating because I feel like it reminds me of a textbook in a lot of ways, because we have the author's note, and then I think it's the tops of it that make me feel like it's a history textbook. Like, it's definitely giving me those vibes. But fingers crossed I enjoy this one. I think it's going to be quite an intricate, complex story, so provided I can actually sink into it, I think there's great potential for me to love this. Hey guys, I am tired and cold, but I'm also 135 pages into The Actual Star by Monica Byrne now. I don't know how to describe this book. I am enjoying it, I will say that, but I don't really know how I'm going to describe this. It is dense. It is dense and it is complex, and it's a slow read. So we're skipping between 3 times in here so far. I think I've done 3 rotations of the times. So you start off in the year 1012. They're all 1,000 years apart, which is significant, I realized, because this features an ancient Maya kingdom. And in 2012, according to the Mayan calendar, the world was going to end, and I completely forgot about all of that. So I think that that's why it's significant that it's the 12s that we're following. So we're starting off in the year 1012, and we are following like a prince and a princess of a Mayan kingdom whose parents, I think, have they died or disappeared? Their parents are missing, and there's actually 3 siblings. So there's the twins, the prince and the princess, who think that they are reincarnations of the hero twins, who I would assume are a real thing when we're talking about ancient Maya. So there's those 2, and then there's their younger sister, Ket. While we're in that timeline, we flip between their perspectives. We don't get every perspective in every time we visit the timeline. But then we also have 2012, where we're following a girl called Leah, who I think her mother's white, but her father is Maya, and she's trying to get close to Xibalba, which is the underworld, and she's doing things like sensory overstimulation to try and bring her to this state of wholeness. But in that 2012 timeline as well, there's a guy called Xander and also a guy called Javier. Now, where I'm up to 100 pages in, they've only just been introduced as perspectives, but we know from the 3012 timeline that those 2 are going to be prominent in the 2012 timeline, because in the year 3012, society has essentially been created around Leah, who is the 2012 character, where she is known as a saint, and this entire society is pretty much constructed around her and what happened in 2012. And they are striving in 3012 to go to Xibalba. They believe that Xibalba is a real place, and that is what they are always striving to achieve. And one day they have like prophets and stuff. The prophets kind of point them into certain directions where they believe there will be a tear in like the universe kind of thing. Not exactly that, but that kind of concept that will allow them to access Xibalba, but they also believe in reincarnation, and it's only like in 10 million lifetimes. Like one person will have an average of 10 million lifetimes across all of time, and only in 20 of those will they be able to access Xibalba. But they believe that in 2012 Leah finally achieved what she was aiming for, which was Xibalba, and that she disappeared. And the 3012 timeline starts off where all of the ice has melted on the earth, so the earth is very different than what we live in now. And she believes that because the world is adapting and they're entering into a new age, they should also maybe reconsider what it is that they worship and believe. And she believes that Xibalba is not actually a physical place that you would go to. It's like a different state of mind, and everybody essentially is in uproar because she's even suggested that Leah, no, Saint Leah from 2012, didn't actually disappear. So that, I feel, is the basic thing that's going on. We have the two twins in 1012 and their little sister, and then in 2012 I think that Leah is the reincarnation of the little sister, and Javier and Xander are the reincarnations of the twins because they are also twins. And then I'm unsure about the 3012 because their society is very different. They essentially have a utopia where they've eradicated everything that humans used to fight over. So instead of settling in any one place, they travel around the country, and their whole society is based on traveling, so that humans don't kind of like congregate and try and rise up against each other. They also don't have families, like they are all each other's family. So if you have a baby, it is taken from you, or you like just give it to the society, and it's raised by different people that you don't have necessarily strong attachments to kin and stuff. So I followed two characters I think so far in that 3012 timeline. One of them is the one who said that she doesn't think that Xibalba is necessarily a real place, and I think that she's going to be the reincarnation of the younger sister from the first timeline. And then the other two perspectives that we'll end up following, I've only followed one so far, are going to be the twins, but they're not going to know that they're twins because of the system that they have here of not like raising their own children. It's a lot. The 2012 timeline is like real easy to read because it's present day, real easy to get your head around. The 1012 timeline is like pretty easy to read. It has a lot of historical cultural references to like ancient Mayan stuff. It does say in the author's note that there's not a lot of documentation on what it would have actually been like, and a whole lot of information about ancient Maya, so a lot of it is made up. But I believe that all of that is reconstructed on what people know about ancient Maya. And then the 3012 one is wild. That thick glossary that's at the end of this is just relating to the 3012 timeline. When I first started this, I looked up one term in the glossary and I had to look up 3 others to understand the first term. So it's getting my head around all of that, which is really slowing down the pace. But I am really enjoying it, and I'm really excited to see how it's going to come together. But yeah, it's just a lot to wrap my head around, so that's where I'm at. Content warnings in here, major one, like the main one in here, is cutting, like self-harm cutting, but it is mainly for the purpose of bloodletting to use in ritual, but it is mentioned like quite a lot across more than one timeline. There's also some like incest in here, which ancient Maya, like ancient times, a lot of ancient civilizations just like fully accepted incest and even like promoted incest, so I'm not surprised. But it's real weird, and like the conversations about sex in this book so far, like all of them, have not been, they're all a little bit odd, you know, but I'm really enjoying it so far, and I'm gonna go read a little bit while I wait for dinner to cook, and then hopefully get through at least to page 200 tonight. But the new season of Fortnite started, so I'm a little bit distracted, I can't lie. Okay, so I'm just in the middle of packing orders, not too much on today, it's just everything that's come in since like Sunday, so not too hefty. I did the bulk of it on Saturday, but I have received a parcel today, which I'm really excited about. I believe that this is from Source Books. It's fantasy romance. It's from an author that I haven't read before, but I have a book by them. And this one, I'm not actually sure about the plot of this one, but from the cover, I feel like it's more high fantasy. The other one's contemporary fantasy. So I'm excited to read it. Oh my god. Oh, it's beautiful. This one is King of Battle and Blood. That was an email. Ooh, an interesting email. But this one is King of Battle and Blood by Scarlet St. Clair, who is the author of, is it A Promise of Darkness, which is a Hades and Persephone retelling. And Madison from Princess and Pippa, she put a little thing in. It says, to Becca, love you, enjoy more smutty vamps. Okay, so it's vampires. XOXO Madison, thank you, my love. I'm so excited to read this. It says, Isolde de Lara considers her wedding day to be her death day. say. To end a years-long war and protect the people of her kingdom, she is to marry the vampire king Adrian Alexander Vasiliev and kill him. Oh, but her assassination attempt is thwarted, and Adrian warns that if Isolde tries to kill him again, he will raise her as the undead. Faced with the possibility of becoming the thing she hates most, Isolde seeks other ways to defy him and survive the violence and political machinations of Adrian's brutal vampire court. Except it isn't the court she ends up fearing the most, it's Adrian and her intense attraction to him. Wrapped in mystery and a past he refuses to discuss, Adrian nevertheless starts to become less of a monster to Isolde. Despite their undeniable chemistry, Isolde can't help but wonder why the king, fierce, complicated, ambitious, and at times inexplicably tender, chose her as consort. The answer will shatter her world. So excited about this. Also, what the fuck is my fringe doing today? Like, literally no idea. But yeah, really excited about this. Heard amazing things about Scarlet Sinclair. It says A Touch of Darkness there at the top, so I was wrong. Maybe the sequel's called A Promise of Darkness or something. Oh, we have a map. But thank you so much, Madison. You know, Madison knows me. Madison's got my back when it comes to smut. If I ever fall into a particular smut niche, because I think once I wanted like toxic bad boys, that was what I really just wanted to binge, I messaged Madison and asked for recommendations, and she always comes through for me. So thank you very much, my love. I'm excited to read that. Maybe before the end of the year. Fuck my life, honestly. I need to stop saying that.
I've been out in New York City dreaming, wishing you were with me. Girl, you look so pretty going out tonight. I've been missing your smile. You should come and stay a while. Fly a couple miles, let's go out tonight. Oh, you've been running through my mind all day. Yeah, you give me everything I need. Oh, anytime you need me there, I'll stay. I promise it's just you and me. I miss you more than I thought I could. Yeah. Somehow I still knew that I would. Said you'd call me, wish you would. I've been feeling pretty empty without you tonight. Kinda lonely, kinda down. Just don't wanna stick around.
So it's taken a long ass time, but I'm in the final stretch of this book now. I'm on page 411. So I have like 160-ish pages left, and I'm hoping to finish it today. I have a little bit of time now because I'm waiting for my fragrance oils to arrive so that I can crack on and make my last candles of 2021. So I'm gonna get a couple of chapters in. I am still really enjoying this. It is just like a super slow read, so it's taking me time to get through it. But it's not like there's only a couple of books that I've ever read that are even remotely like this. So I really just don't know how this is going to end, but I'm in the second section of the book, and towards the end of the first section things started to drastically change. So I'm excited to see how everything revolves because I literally have no idea what's going to go down. Hey, I'm having a little bit of a rough day today. I'm sleep deprived, not feeling too great, and to top it all off, my computer is now rebelling against me when I'm trying to get some editing done. But I did accomplish something last night. Like, today is a struggle, but last night I did accomplish something because I have now finished The Actual Star by Monica Byrne, and I really enjoyed this. I found this to be very comforting. It reminded me a lot of like an advanced Becky Chambers, because Becky Chambers to me is a introductory level sci-fi where it mainly focuses on things like contemporary issues and societal issues in a futuristic setting, and it's very character driven, it's very warming, and I personally generally just find books that are very slow paced and atmospheric very comforting. So even though this did deal with some like darker topics, like we have a utopia on the brink of collapse, very strained familial relationships in this book as well, and there's some like torture and mutilation aspects to one of the timelines. I really enjoyed just how thoughtfully written it was. I want to say the overall message, but it's just, I don't know, it's just the pacing and the atmosphere. I just found this to be really comforting. I will say that I didn't fully understand the end of this. It has a very ambiguous ending that is open to interpretation, which you guys know that I don't particularly like. This does give, like, it kind of gives a resolution, but it's one of those where, like, you don't know if you actually believe the resolution that it gives you kind of situation. And I would have liked to revisit one of the other timelines one last time to wrap up this book, but it is definitely, like, it reminds me of The Queens of Innislia, which is a book that I read in like 2018, and I only give it 3 stars because I was expecting something different from it. Now, when I went into this, I kind of felt like it was going to be a book like Queens of Innislia, because the deal with that book, and the reason why I gave it 3 stars, is because I kept waiting for the pace to pick up and things to happen in that story, and that's not what that book was. It was very dramatic and lots of things were happening, but in a very slow, like, revenge plot, like personal familial betrayal kind of situations going on. So like a very quiet kind of drama, so there's no like big battles and swords and horses and all of that stuff. This is kind of the same, but I enjoyed this more because I assumed it was going to be that kind of book going into it, where we don't have anything huge, like there's no huge battle at the end of this book. You're not building up to anything that's like cinematic and spectacular. It just kind of plods along all the way through, and even though the pacing is very slow, it kept me interested and kept me turning pages. I had no problem returning to this, and I will say that my driving force through this book was not, I want to read more, I want to find out what happens, although there is quite a bit of intrigue that does give you a little inkling of that feeling. It was more, I just want to return to this book, because even though all of the things going on aren't nice, it's a nice, pleasant reading experience. I really liked the way that reincarnation was done here. I liked that you could clearly tell who the reincarnations were and kind of thread it back through the timelines, and I really like how the timelines related to each other. So in this early timeline, we essentially have the fall of the Maya civilization as people knew it, where they had like the big pyramids and all of that kind of stuff, and then according to history, like the Maya just disappeared. They didn't disappear, like Maya people still exist in the world today, but the civilization as people know it or knew it disappeared. So the first timeline is kind of the origin, and then the present day timeline is kind of the catalyst. It is the cause, because the happenings of the present day timeline directly affect the futuristic timeline, where, as I said, the people in the 1000 years in the future have built an entire religion and an entire way of life off these 3 people who, when we're reading their perspective in the present day timeline, they are just normal people. And something that I did find really interesting about this is a book that you could interpret in many different ways and take many different things from it. But something that I really enjoyed reading about in this is the evolution of myth, and how these 3 normal people are something completely different, and you don't have all of the nuance in the way that they're represented in the future, where people are saying like, this person would have believed this, they stood for this, when in the present day timeline, they're just like a normal person, you know? They're not stood on a rooftop saying, I believe in this, this is what I want for the future, this is who I am as a person. But in the futuristic timeline, people have made all of these assumptions and they've turned them from people into saints, essentially. And I really liked that it kind of showed how, essentially, how rumors grow, and by the time they've grown, while the essence is still there, they're very different from the thing that they grew from. So I really enjoyed that aspect of this as well. Gave it 4 stars. No real reason, just didn't get that like super buzzy 5-star feeling from this, but I did really enjoy it. I will say as well that you will have an easier job reading this if you know at least a little bit of Spanish. I know less than basic Spanish, like I can count to 3 in Spanish. I know like hello, good evening, but there is a little bit of Spanish in here and it's not translated for you on the page. And there is also Belizean Creole in here as well, which is kind of, I believe that Creole is like a slang that sounds very similar to English, so you can kind of make it out even if you don't speak Creole. And I did make out most of the Creole in here, but some of it I did not. So if you are familiar with Spanish or Belizean Creole, you will have a little bit of an easier time than I did reading this one. That's book 2 out of the way, so we've had a 3-star and a 4-star so far in this video. And the next book I'm going to be picking up is All of Us Villains by Amanda Foodie and Lynn Herman. And out of the 3 books in this video, this is the one that I was least excited to read. I didn't like the cover for this. I've never wanted to read a book by Amanda Foodie, not as some like great statement or anything, it's just none of her books or series have attracted my interest. But I do like The Devouring Grey by Lynn Herman, and I don't have a bookmark in this, but I have read 3 chapters of this, so I'm on page 34. I really like this already, and I would not be surprised if this is my favorite book of this vlog. So this one, I don't know if it's YA or adult yet. It could kind of like ambiguously sit in the middle where like either audience would have a great time reading it. But we are following the children, older teenagers, people. I don't know how old anyone is at this point, but essentially every 20 years or so there is this competition that all of these villainous families participate in. They all have a champion, and the champions take part in this once every 20-year competition to control all of the, I think it's called the high magic that's left in the world. It's a blood moon, I think, that signifies the start of the tournament. Honestly, the atmosphere in here so far is on point. And somebody said in the comments of one of my videos when I was like, has anybody read this book? Like, I've not heard of it, can you tell me what it's about? Somebody said that it's like if all of the pure-blooded like Death Eaters or Slytherin families got together and had a competition to fight for power, and I was sold. I was sold from that moment out, so I'm not too far into that, but I am very, very excited to continue.
Oh, anytime you need me there, I'll stay. I promise it's just you and me. I miss you more than I thought I could, yeah. Somehow I still knew that I would. I miss you more than I thought I should, yeah. Even though you told me I would. Oh, I've been out in Hollywood, said you'd call me, wish you would. I've been feeling pretty empty without you tonight. Kinda lonely, kinda down, just don't wanna stick around. Clear your schedule, let's find something else to do tonight.
So I felt like I've been dragging my feet a little bit on All of Us Villains, but I've picked it up today and I've read 150 pages in pretty much one sitting. So I'm now on page 182. I'm really enjoying it. It's really atmospheric, which is something that I associate with Lynn Herman from reading The Devouring Grey, and it does have those same kind of vibes, like just the tone and the atmosphere of it that I really like from that book as well. But in this one, we are like what the person who commented on my video said about like pure blood Slytherin families all competing for power is absolutely spot on. So in this town there are 7 powerful families, and a curse was put on, I'm not sure if it was them or whether it was the town, but there's common magic and high magic, and humanity used high magic to build all of the monuments of the world and do all these great things and win wars, and then all of the high magic disappeared. There was absolutely none left, or so people thought. But this town and the families that are high up in this town do have access to a little bit of high magic. So every 20-ish years, a blood moon comes that signals that the tournament is about to start, and when the blood veil falls, the fight for power begins. So they nominate a champion who has to be within like a certain age bracket. I think they're all teenagers. There's still no exact ages been specified. I think the youngest is 15, but I'm not sure how old the oldest is, maybe 18. But they have to select a champion from the family and they fight to the death, and whoever is left standing wins all of the magic. And if at the end of 3 months there's still more than one alive, then all of them die, and I don't think any of them get the magic. So of these 7 families, we are following 4 of the champions from those families. Sorry, the Christmas tree is set on display mode, so it just starts flashing randomly sometimes. I really am too lazy to change it onto the setting that I actually want. But we're following 4 of the champions from these families, and their families are all kind of known for different things, so they're all like various degrees of monstrous, and I'm kind of worried at this point, and I feel like it is going to head into this direction. It really annoys me when books do this, but I feel like all of these characters are redeemable, and I'm like, I'm just tired of having books that are about villains where the villains are like redeemable characters. I like a villain that has a tragic backstory. You know, like how I've been listening to a lot of true crime recently. It's the same in books. Like if you think of, I can't say because it's technically a spoiler if you haven't read the first book, but there's loads of serial killers and there's loads of villains in books that have this backstory. Lavana in the Lunar Chronicles is one. So you can see why they've ended up the way they have and like how that's come about, and it doesn't excuse their actions when they've turned into a villain, but you can understand and like feel for the person they were and what was done to them that made them the way that they are. I like villains like that, but I still want them to be a villain. Like I don't want them to be redeemable. So I feel like if I end up having one complaint about this book, it will be that they end up being redeemable, but there's already been some pretty shocking stuff that I didn't expect in here, and I'm like, oh no, like some of these families like are kind of dark. I will say though that it does still stray that line between YA and adult, so it's not really like, it's not a grim dark or anything like that. It's not extremely dark, but just because it does have that slight YA edge or tone to it, it's like darker than I would expect it to be, considering that, especially because like I knew going into this, like these are two young adult authors, so I knew that it wasn't going to be like super dark adult, but I'm really enjoying it so far. So where I'm up to, what page did I say? I was on 180. Tournament has just started. It's been going on for a little while, but I'm really excited to see what happens, and I hope that because the thing is as well, like they've all gone in with different issues and different things going on. Some of them have had some last minute like setbacks and stuff, but I feel like because it's a story, I feel like they're gonna try and change what's happening and change the fact that they have to do a tournament every 20 years and a ton of people die, whereas it would have kind of just been cool if we were following 7 teenagers from this villainous family and they were just killing each other. Like, you know how The Hunger Games does have a revolution plot line, but the first book is the games. I don't feel like that is going to be like this, which is sad because like I said this to Jessie the other day from Bow Ties and Books. I just want to read more books about badass, terrible people being badass and terrible without them having a moral dilemma and kind of changing their ways. Hey, good morning. I didn't think that I was actually going to have this book finished for now. Actually, the reason that I did finish this is sadly I had another rough night last night. I've been experiencing, you know, the nighttime anxiety. Everybody has it. It's like when you get in bed and you start thinking about all the things that you're distracted from in the day. That happens to me frequently. It's just standard at this point, but over the last week or so it's been so bad that I can't sleep. Like I'm not tired enough to be able to just put it out of my mind and go to sleep. So I've been getting up in the middle of the night and then reading until 4 AM, and then I feel like death the day after. But because I got up because of that anxiety, I finished All Those Villains by Amanda Foodie and Christine Lynn Herman, and you know what, I really enjoyed it, and I do think that this might be my favorite book for this video, although possibly like tied with the actual star because they're just very different stories, so I can't really compare my enjoyment of them on the same kind of scale. I don't necessarily take back what I said about my only complaint about this would be that the villains aren't villainous enough because they'll end up being like redeemable characters. I don't necessarily take it back because I think at least in some instances, even in the sequel to this, we are definitely still going to go in that direction, but the plot definitely thickened throughout this. Also, I match this book right now. I really enjoy that. But the plot definitely thickened. We were coming to the end of this book and I was like, okay, they have an objective, but how are they going to complete it? And if they're not going to fully complete the objective and they're going to leave it for the sequel, where are we going to end this book? Because it would feel really weird to end it when you've already like kind of set off on this path. But the plot thickened, and the plot thickened quite a bit. I will say that some of the plot turnaround seemed to come a little bit too quick. Like I felt myself wondering with a couple of things that happened in the plot, like how did we get from here to here in this short amount of pages, like across 10-20 pages. It seemed like a switch had flipped and we were suddenly just going in a completely different direction. But I do really like what the authors did with some of the characters and how they brought some of the things into play, and I'm definitely reading the sequel to this. I did give it 4 stars. I haven't had a 5-star read at this point since the beginning of October, and I'm like, is it me? Is it the books? Like, am I broken? Was What's wrong with me? So I'm still hoping for a 5-star before the end of the year. Sadly, this was not it, but the atmosphere was on point. Really like where the plot is heading. Really excited actually for the sequel to this and the progression of what's going to happen in here. And even though this is a small book, and like I said, some things did seem to happen a little bit too quickly to be plausible in terms of the directions of the characters, I really like the character growth in here in terms of like where they started compared to where they ended, even though the execution for me was a little bit too quick and unbelievable in places. So I was surprised because this is the one, like on paper, if you put the titles down, you'd think that this would be one of the ones that I enjoyed the most this week, but I just wasn't feeling it, you know, like I just didn't really want to read this book. I wasn't super interested, but it was really good and I really liked it. Would definitely recommend this as well if you're a fan of like an Unkindness and Magicians, maybe the Atlas 6. You have a level of pretension in here, but it is a different type of pretension to the Atlas 6, but like same kind of group of privileged people or like gifted people all thrown together and nobody can trust each other. Definitely those kinds of vibes. And if you like the Devouring Grey because of how good the atmosphere is, then you'll probably like the atmosphere in here as well, because definitely one of my favorite elements of this. So in conclusion, I've read these 3 books, which are the September, October and November Goldsborough pick. Very different reactions to these books than I thought, because I definitely was most excited to read this. Thought this would be my favorite. I've already forgot a lot about this. If this does turn out to be a series, I'm not reading the sequel to this. It was fun. I liked the characters, but it was just too fast and didn't have enough. I don't want to say it didn't have enough substance because that sounds unnecessarily cruel, but it just wasn't thick enough for me. Like literally didn't have enough substance for this level of story for me. This one kind of turned out exactly how I expected it to. I think that this is a really good book. It's very well written, very atmospheric, really slow, thoughtful story that deals with like lost culture and also societal issues and the idea of utopia, reincarnation, the evolution of religion, all of that kind of stuff. It's a very good book. I enjoyed it a lot, but in terms of like my personal preferences and things that I really love to read about, this wasn't it. So it's kind of one of those where like, you know how you can read a classic and be like, yes, I appreciate this, I know why this is a classic, it's real good, but it's not hitting my buttons. This was this book for me, but if it sounds interesting to you, definitely read it because it is really good. And then this one is probably the one that I enjoyed the most. Hit some major buttons for me because villains, I love myself a villain story. Anything that's like morally grey, anti-heroes, villains, I am all about it, and this definitely delivered on that, even if I didn't think it was necessarily going to. And I love myself an atmospheric read. So at the minute, is the Goldsborough Science Fiction and Fantasy Fellowship worth my money? I would say it is. I would say it is. 2 4-star reads and a 3-star read. I was hoping for a 5-star in this video. Did not happen, but oh well, we always have the next time. And I mean, there's the thing about this as well is that we're saying, is Goldsborough worth my money? Like, is this subscription worth my money? That is never going to be a question I can answer because they're obviously going to pick books that I love. They're probably going to pick books that I hate. This is just how it is. It's just how it is. But do I like adult sci-fi and fantasy? I absolutely do. Something that I have really enjoyed about this video as well is, like I said at the beginning, one of the reasons why I wanted this subscription is because it's sending me books that I wouldn't be picking up for myself or that I hadn't necessarily heard of. And I've definitely really enjoyed reading books that I've gone into this week with, like, I have my own bias. Like, I didn't think I was gonna like all of us villains, but I didn't have anybody else's bias because I've heard nobody talk about any of these books. I've heard a few, very few things about Among Thieves, but everything else I've heard absolutely nothing about. So it was nice for once, as somebody who makes booktube content, has a lot of people telling me things about books when I haul them, consumes a lot of booktube content, so consumes a lot of other people's reviews. It was nice to go into a book knowing pretty much nothing and just experiencing it completely blind. So I also definitely appreciated that this vlog allowed me to do that as well. But that brings us to the end of this one. If you have liked this one, then stay tuned for my other vlogs, I guess. But if you specifically liked this vlog with this theme, the next installment I believe is going to be coming in March, and I will be reading the December, January and February picks, so definitely stay tuned for that. But thank you guys so much for watching this vlog if you've made it this far. If you have, please don't forget to like if you liked it and subscribe if you wanna, if you're interested in adult fantasy and my thoughts on that. I believe I'm picking up The Hero of Ages next by Brandon Sanderson, so that is sure to be a ride. But that's it from me today, guys, and I will see you all next week. Bye!
Oh, you bite your friend like chocolate. You say you're go where nobody knows, with guns hidden under our petticoats. We're never gonna quit it, no, we're never gonna quit it, no.